A very warm good evening to all of you. I am Anchal. I would be conducting this session today, so I'd request all the participants to please turn on your videos. Okay, so before we start, is there anybody who's joined us for the first time? Who's joined my session for the first time and would want to give a brief intro about themselves, about what are they doing currently, what are they expecting of today's session in particular? Any one of you would like to share that with us? Nobody? Khushbu, Farah, are you joining us for the first time? Would you like to give us a brief intro about yourself before we start our session for today?
Hi, ma'am. It's my third class.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hi, I am sorry I joined a little bit late. I couldn't follow the question.
Okay. I just wanted to understand something, just a brief intro about yourself and what you are looking up from today's session with us.
So I am Anindu Chattopadhyay. I'm a life coach and I am into people development field. Due to my profession, I feel like I'm supposed to know a lot more about the behavior of people. So I'm attending the session.
Okay, superb. Anybody else? Do you want to give us a brief intro about yourself, about your expectations of today's session?
Hi Anshul, this is Tejaswini here. I couldn't attend your last session. So this is my first. I went through your video. So I work with an NGO which works with underprivileged children. So they do face a lot of behavioral issues. So this session would help me help them in turn.
Okay, superb. Anybody else? Okay, so I think I'll start sharing my screen so that we can start our today's session. Okay, just to give you a brief about myself, I am Anchal Harjai. I'm practicing as a clinical psychologist in New Delhi. And today, through this particular session, we will be discussing about behavioral counseling. Behavioral counseling is one aspect of one of the different approaches of therapy or counseling that we use with our clients in order to work upon the external or the observable set of actions performed. Before going ahead, a few ground rules I would like to probably discuss. I would expect if all of you kind of turn your videos on so that it's easy for me to interact, to me to know who all are there in the session, right? And keep yourselves in mute while the presentation is being run. And if you have any doubts or any queries, feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions. If you feel that I'm going too fast, if you want me to go slow, or if you want me to repeat something, feel free to unmute yourself and share that with us, since I would want it to be very interactive, so either you can write in the chat box or unmute yourselves so that we kind of learn from each other. Okay, I do not want it to be just a kind of a lecture. I want all of yours involvement. As much as it can be, I would much appreciate that. Okay, towards the end of the session, like once I'm done with the presentation, I will be devoting 10 minutes for all the queries or question answers that you have related to the topic or related to what we've discussed. So you can also ask there in itself. Okay, so here we start. I just want you to look at these pictures and tell me what do you think these are, or have you heard of anything of this sort before? So let's start with the middle one, employee of the month. Any one of you has heard anything of this sort, or you know what it is, where it is done, why is it done?
It's a reward.
Okay. Okay. Yes, Anindya ji, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's a reward and recognition program of any organization that is good with the employee relationship.
Okay, so you're saying a kind of a reward that is given to improve the employee and the employer relationship.
Correct.
To motivate the employees in an organization so that they will keep up their performance.
Okay, good. Okay, anybody else? Okay, okay. Let's talk about this picture where these children, all these young kids, they are all trying smoking. What do you think this kind of depicts?
Succumbing to peer pressure. Sorry.
Peer pressure. Okay, good. Anybody else?
They are trying to get them up on the first, come first every time.
I am come first everything. I think you're talking about this picture where the child is holding this trophy.
Right.
Okay, okay. ठीक है, coming first. We were talking about this picture, though, the one where these children are trying to smoke. They're all smoking. ठीक है.
There could be no they are finding some friends, so they should not feel alone, kind of, or they feel detached from their friend circle, or so they are trying to manage that kind of stress.
Okay, okay, super. Okay, what about this last one where we see this woman holding a stick and a child kind of looks
Typical scenario where children are not doing their homework, or they are not listening, they are not keeping quiet. So they are trying to fear them and what they want to achieve from that there at this kind of scenario.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
It looks like a mama-son scenario.
Where what is mom trying to do?
Like
She's reprimanding the child to something that he has done or she has done.
Okay. Anindya ji, you want to go ahead? You were saying something.
No, it's the same thing about what she said just, because it looks like she is trying to make the son or daughter, I am not being able to, it's so small in my mobile, so probably trying to help the kid to have a better behavior in the way she understands behavior.
Okay, superb. Very nice. So why I included these scenarios is because these are all based on the principles of behavioral counseling, and which we at some point in our lives have actually experienced. Let's say being rewarded, as you all of you said, as employee of the month. What exactly does? So what am I doing? One employee performed well. one employee kind of was punctual, did their task in time, they managed their work well, they managed the team well. Because they've done all of these things, the company appreciate or acknowledges their effort. And they put probably, I think first when I noticed this, I started noticing it in McDonald's, where the moment you used to enter in that place and there was this board and they used to put the picture of the employee with this badge, and the employee himself is wearing the badge, Employee of the Month. So what are they trying to tell us? They're trying to differentiate what is an expected behavior so that everybody else also knows that these are the things that we appreciate in a person. And at the same time, appreciating and acknowledging the efforts the employee himself or herself has put into it, so that they know once your actions are acknowledged, there is a consequence to a particular set of actions. You decide whether you would want to do that action more or you would want to decrease that action. So this is majorly the approach that we use in behavioral counseling. This kid who's wearing this orange t-shirt with headphones in his neck, so he's trying to smoke because he's surrounded by all his adolescent friends who kind of smoke. So for him, smoking is a sort of a maybe social affirmation, is maybe social acceptance, that I would be perceived as cool by my friends, or I would have a social group to be a part of, and that's why he wants to try to smoke. So all his behaviors are driven by the consequences. The consequence would be that I would have a group to be part of. This child who's holding this trophy in his hand and everybody appreciating, right? So my applaud, everybody's applaud for him is kind of giving him a motivation that I would want to keep on doing these behaviors. A mother not happy or is angry with the child because he did not perform or do his homework in time. So this kind of tells the child that this action of mine has a negative consequence. Either my mom would be angry with me or she would not allow me to go out and play, right? So he would want to do his homework on time and then go out and play. So all of this is somewhere based upon behavioral counseling, that whatever the consequence would be to our action will determine whether I would want to keep on doing that behavior or whether I would want to stop doing that behavior. For example, traffic rules, right? If I do not obey the traffic rules, the next day I get a challan at my home, right? Or police catches me at some point. Why? Again, it is pertaining to behavioral counseling, that if I do not follow the traffic rule, if I jump the red light or if I stand on the zebra crossing, so it might have a negative consequence. So I need to stop doing it. So behavior is a set of observable actions that we perform. It's a set of externalizing actions that we perform based upon our thoughts or emotions, right? I am feeling sad today. Why? Let's say the thought in my mind is that I don't feel that I have been a good employer, I have not been a good employee. I'm unable to manage anything at work. I'm unable to be productive. So these are the thoughts that are going on in my mind. So I feel very sad. I feel very irritated. And out of my sadness, I just withdraw myself from people. Or out of my irritation, I just snap out at everybody around. I have arguments with my sister, I have arguments with my mom. So all these things I'm doing. So these arguments, or me being snappy all the time, or me falling, or me hitting anybody, fighting with somebody, are the observable set of actions because of my emotions and my thought processes. So behavior is just the outward expression of our emotions or of what we are thinking. Now, when we talk about behavioral counseling, it is very important for us to understand what are adaptive or what are maladaptive behaviors, right? At a certain extent, why we say it's always a reference when I'm saying behaviors, because we have to understand that not every behavior is wrong or not every behavior is good. Let's say, so when we talk about maladaptive behavior, it has to be age inappropriate. When I'm saying that this is maladaptive, so the behavior is age inappropriate and it interferes with my day-to-day functioning. Adaptive functioning is day-to-day functioning, or it kind of interferes with my cultural appropriateness, is when I call that behavior is inappropriate. A 5-year-old child showing a lot of temper tantrums the time when he goes to the mall with his parents might not be an adaptive behavior, but it would be appropriate, right? Because we know he's a kid, he's a 5-year, he wouldn't know how to behave. So he's kind of crying because he wants a favorite toy and the parents do not want to get for him. So that is appropriate. But the same 25-year-old guy doing the same thing, he's with his parents in that mall shouting, creating a huss about it, is not adaptive. So whenever we talk about behaviors, adaptive or maladaptive, it always have to be seen in sync with the age and with the culture that they belong to. Okay, and if it is interfering with my day-to-day functioning, it's somewhere it is interfering with my personal functioning, right? What am I doing? Or my work related, or my social functioning. Social functioning when I'm in a group, when I'm out there with friends or family. So if in any of these three domains, if it is affecting, then we say it is an inappropriate or maladaptive behavior that needs to be corrected. Let's say a 17-year-old child and he is misbehaving with teachers in the classroom, using foul language, is a maladaptive behavior. And when we are using the maladaptive behaviors, or when we are trying to help a person improve on their behavioral patterns, it is very important that we use the term adaptive, maladaptive behaviors, rather than using the terms that you are a bad person, or your entire personality is bad. So what we have to see is, whenever we are doing behavioral counseling, we have to differentiate personality from a set of actions, rather than labeling. Like we say these things to our kids, that you are not doing your homework, you're a bad boy, right? So what are we doing? Because he did not perform a particular set of action, we're labeling him as bad in altogether. That is what we do not do in behavioral counseling. In behavioral counseling, we say, you did not do your homework. This is an inappropriate behavior, and I would want you to improve on it, rather than saying that you are a bad person or you are a failure. Okay, we just point out at a particular set of behaviors that we're trying to improve on. So behavioral approach, it sees all the psychological disorders that we're trying to help in a person, or any set of behavioral patterns that we're trying to help. We see all of them as maladaptive learning, because my past learning patterns have not been very well. Like I have always seen in my family that whenever there is an argument, people have to raise their voices, or whenever there is a disagreement, people often just disrespect each other's boundaries and they would raise their voice and they would say mean things. That has been my learning. So now, even when I am with my husband or I am with my kids, I always use the same approach in order to deal, or I use the same set of behaviors in order to deal with that. So it is very important. It is very important for me to understand all those learning patterns. And when we are working on the behavioral patterns, we only try help them to unlearn their past learning patterns and give them a new learning approaches. Okay, so we say that people, when a child is born, he's actually born as tabula rasa, like a blank slate. Okay, when he is born, he does not know anything. Right? What does he do? He downloads, he learns everything from his family members, the language that he would use, the terms that he would say, the belief patterns that he has, the cultural norms that he would follow. So everything has been learned from the family. And if there are certain maladaptive patterns in which the family members are expressing their emotions, using the language, dealing with the conflicts, then it is bound to happen that the child might also follow the same things. So what do we have to do is, we just have to help them unlearn those patterns. Okay, so in behavioral counseling, what is the goal is to modify the maladaptive patterns by reinforcing the more adaptive behavioral patterns. So what we see in the form of actions is just the tip of the iceberg. What goes behind is a lot of meanings behind that, right? That every time, let's say an adult always being, or a male, a 25-year-old male, always agitated, or the moment somebody tells him something, he becomes very aggressive towards those things, or he always snaps at everybody in his company if they are not following his rules. On asking why he does that, so he says that if I'm raising my voice, then only people would respect me. If I would instill that fear in them, then only they would want to do the work. So what is the meaning behind him being argumentative, or him always being agitated or very commanding towards people is he feels that that will give him a lot of power, that will kind of give him a lot of respect. So his argumentative behavior, or his behavior where he's instilling a lot of fear in people, is just to make them work, or is just to seek a lot of acceptance or respect from them. So but in behavior therapy, what do we do is we just try to work on, we try to help them give what are the best communication patterns that they can use with their employees or employers, how to communicate their feelings, how to be able to cope with the life situations or the problems in hand. So behavioral counseling approach is based upon 3 principles of psychology, 3 learning theories that we say, because we say that all behaviors are learned. So it is based upon based upon these 3 learning theories. So the first one is theory of classical conditioning. Okay. Anybody has heard or anybody knows about this particular experiment? It was done by Ivan Pavlov.
Yeah, I have heard of this.
Okay. Would you want to explain everybody about this?
See, basically, it is more into the reflex action and unconditional and conditional reflex action part. So what happens that when repeatedly an activity is done, we, by our senses, we include all the animals. In this case, it's a dog. So we try to understand that there is a sequence and there is a kind of condition between the 2 activities simultaneously, if happening together. So there is a bell. The moment there is a bell ringing and there is a food given to the dog, it understands that if that bell rings, I'm going to get the food. So there can be a situation when there is no food, but the bell is ringing, and the dog is assuming that, okay, fine, I'm going to get the food. It's a kind of conditioning of the habit and behavior.
Good. Okay. So conditioning means something that we become very habituated to do, a set of responses that act as more of a reflex. So for example, if I bring a very hot piping pizza, okay, in front of any one of you, or if you see it, automatically we would start to salivate. Automatically, I would want to jump off and eat it, right? So it's a very conditioning response. It's very automatic or a reflex response. So similarly, this physicist, what he did was he wanted to experiment. So what did he do with his pet? So of course, whenever he showed his pet his food bowl, he would come running, right? And he would start to salivate because the food is presented in front of him. So automatically it would happen. My favorite food is presented in front of me. I would have saliva. So this is something very unconditional. Okay, I have not conditioned, but it's automatically that's been happening. Now, and let's say if I start to ring a bell in front of the door, so he would not salivate because bell is not equal to salivation, right? It would not bring any this response. So now what did he start to do, this physicist, this experimenter? He used to first ring the bell. Okay, and then after ringing the bell, subsequently 2 minutes after ringing the bell, he used to present the food. Okay, so every time so he had conditioned the dog like this for 10 continuous, for 15 continuous days. He first used to ring the bell, and 2 minutes after he used to present the food. So now the dog was conditioned that the moment the bell will ring, it would mean that I would be given the food. So it became an automatic reflex for the dog. So the moment the bell used to ring, now he used to start salivating because he knew कि अब खाना आना है. So what did the experimenter did? And after 15 days, when this pairing was done, after 15 days, he just used to ring the bell. So when he used to ring the bell, the dog used to come running and used to start salivating. Even so, it happened 2 minutes, 3 minutes, he did not present the food, but the dog was still salivating. So somewhere we kind of say that the dog has now been conditioned that the moment the bell will ring, I would be presented the food. So this is what we say, that we also become conditioned to a certain set of responses in our environment, right? Like following a traffic light. I have been conditioned that the moment the traffic light, yes. So the moment the traffic light would be there, red light would be there, I will have to stop. So there are certain, or Anindya ji, you want to say something?
Yeah, Anshadji, basically, that is the exact example I was going to give, that in Indian traffic system, it is rather when we have our green signal, we try to see the other side's red signal and start running towards the other end. That is our conditioning always.
Yeah, that's how we have kind of formulated the traffic rules.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, true. Okay, so similarly, like this, we just condition. Let's say, I went to this restaurant which was referred to me by my friend. So she said that it's a newly opened restaurant. It serves a very delicious food. I like the Indian service and everything. The food was very tasty. You should go and try. So one fine day I decided to go there with my family. So after coming, I did not have a very good experience. Probably there was smell that I could, and there was the food was stinky. And the moment I came back home, I kind of got food poisoning. So I had nausea, I had diarrhea, I was not feeling well, right? So now when next time, so now I've recovered, but next time when I just visit this place and I just see the name of this restaurant, it kind of gives me that uncomfortable feeling. It kind of reminds me that I came to this place and I was not okay. So it brings these uncomfortable emotions in me. Why? Because the last time when I came here, it was not a good experience. So I've been conditioned. So I tell everybody, please don't go to this restaurant because it hasn't been a good place. Why? Because my reflex, my mind has been conditioned to know it wasn't a good place. So that's what classical conditioning tells us, that we, after a particular set of experiences or an events that have been happening, we just become very automatic to respond to those things. That's classical conditioning. That's first theory of learning. Then operant conditioning. That's second theory of learning. So it says that all our behaviors, as I discussed, are a result of the consequences that would happen immediately after I've performed that set of an action or a behavior. Let's say that I wrote my exams and I got A grade in all of them, right? So that was a positive reinforcement for me. I would want to, next time also, I would want to study. I broke this traffic rule and I was fined, or a challan was sent at my home. So this is a sort of a punishment that was given to me. So I would not want to do that behavior repeat. So that was because of a particular consequence to my set of actions. I would either start doing that more often or I would do it less. Okay, that's why we say keep reinforcing your child, keep giving them a lot of praises if they're doing something. Why? It gives them a reinforcement, and that should be present immediately post the occurrence of a behavior. Let's say that if I say that my child completed his homework on time today without me intervening, so I should appreciate him there itself, that I am glad that you did your homework on your own. So what is he doing? What he kinds of knows it. This is what my mom or this is what my dad expects of me. This behavior I should keep on doing. Or we reward them with chocolates, or we reward them with the small picnics or our favorite time. So anything of that sort. So that is what reinforcement does. So any consequence on our action helps us to determine what our behaviors would be. This is operant conditioning. Then the last is observational learning. Okay, so it says that behavior is learned by watching and replicating others. Just to give you an example, I tried to put this funny picture over here. So let's say that these two ladies went to a restaurant, but they did not know how to use these chopsticks. So they were all confused. They ordered food, the food was here and everybody was using these chopsticks, but they did not know how to use them. So they were distressed. But then what they did is they stopped for a while and kept on observing everybody around that place, all the other guests in the restaurant. And after observing after a while, they also started to know how to use it. So I have just observed things in my environment and I'm starting to replicate all these things is based upon observational learning approach. I think this is what we learn. As kids, we all learn what all things are done in our environment, right? We all just capture everything that's been happening around. And that's how that kind of becomes a part of my actions. Okay, let's say to make a family recipe from my mom is based upon observational learning. To learn to ride a bike, a car from your dad. I've been observing him and then practicing it. That's how I learn. Learning to dance from your friend or a colleague is an observational learning. Okay, so these three are the principles on which all the behavioral counseling is based. These are the three factors that contribute to forming a set of behavioral responses in an individual. You know, we also see a lot of negative attention being given to children, or anybody for that matter. For a lot of, especially we see either this type of a behavior in adolescents, in young children, or in people who are in their old age. So what happens is people start to seek a lot of negative attention. Let's say that I am not listening to my child. They've been calling me, but I'm busy with my office work. So what does he start to do? He starts to cry. Okay, and then I leave everything and I go and I ask him what happened. So he knows that my mom will only listen to me if I'll start crying or if I'll get angry. So what am I doing? What am I giving him? I'm giving him a lot of negative attention. So now he's been used to what am I doing? It's based upon operant conditioning. That what am I doing? He knows that the moment I cry or I become agitated, this response will give me a attention. And because I'm giving him attention, that behavior will sustain. Let's say a child asks me that he wants a ice cream, okay, and I say no, I can't give you an ice cream, but what does he start to do? He starts to cry, he starts to show all the temper tantrums. So what do? I finally land up and give him a ice cream. So what has he learned now? Then when I asked my mom to give me an ice cream, she did not give me. But when I was just created a hue and cry about the situation, I went to my dad, I went to my grandparents, now I got it. So why do I ask very nicely? I should rather cry only. I should rather be agitated only. Or I should always be angry. So everybody will give me attention and give me that ice cream. So most often people use this as a sort of getting a lot of negative attention from people. So we have to make sure whenever if you observe that somebody is trying to get a lot of negative attention from you, please make sure you are ignoring them at that point of time. No matter how much you feel that they're crying, they're getting agitated, until unless there are risk involved behaviors, you have to ignore them and you have to set this straight that I would not be listening to you until and unless you keep on crying. I would not listen. Crying is not bad, okay, but crying to get something done is not right intention. Crying is a very healthy emotion. It's just a stress releasing hormone. But I am crying, I'm being agitated, I'm throwing all the things just because I want my demands to be met is not a healthy action or it's not a healthy behavior. So you tell them very firmly that until and unless you stop doing it, you sit and tell me why you would want it, and you listen to mama telling you that we can afford or we cannot afford, or these are the reasons that I would want to tell you. And that's how we solve the conflict rather than giving a lot of negative attention. So in behavioral counseling or behavioral therapy, we deal with clients' current set of problems. Whatever issues they have been going through right now, whatever behavioral actions we feel kind of need fixing. And it involves a lot of active role from both the sides, from the client also and from the therapist also. We cannot do behavioral counseling for people who are not ready for counseling or who do not feel that their behavioral needs some sort of a change. So for behavioral counseling, the active role of both the parties is very important. When we're doing behavioral counseling, all the interventions are tailored. All the interventions are specifically to as per the need of the person. And what treatment would be effective for a particular client would depend upon what set of circumstances in which we are using that particular treatment module. Okay. A different set of techniques that we follow when we're doing behavioral counseling. Systemic desensitization, or at times we call it systematic desensitization, flooding, assertiveness training in terms of telling a person, being able to express no without feeling guilty or without feeling bad about it, social skills training, aversion therapy, shaping, extinction, token economies, contingency contracting, timeout. So I'll be discussing in detail a few of these. So the first one is systemic desensitization. This was given by Joseph Wald. So this involves this particular type of technique we use when we are trying to help a person come out of their fears. When we feel that there are a lot of fearful responses, maybe exam fear, maybe fear of dogs, lizards, of a particular place, anything of that sort, or a phobia, social phobia that people not willing to go out in public. So we use systemic desensitization, and behavioral therapies work best with fears. Why? Because we feel that fears are developed because of classical conditioning learning theory. You know, let's say that I have a fear of dogs because when I was young, there was an incident when I was surrounded by a lot of dogs and they all started barking at me, right? And a few just pounced at me, and it was because an adult came and he kind of rescued me. So then I was able to feel better. So now this situation has been so ingrained in me that whenever I see a dog, I become very fearful. I become very anxious at that particular situation. So now this has been conditioned in me. The moment I see dog, it means it will bark at me, it will pounce at me, and it can harm me. So these are a certain set of, because of a classical conditioning theory. Yeah, twice it has happened that I saw a road accident, and because of that, now it's difficult for me to drive a car. These are all based upon classical conditioning approaches. So we use systematic desensitization technique with them. So there are 3 steps in what we do is, first of all, we understand all the fear related to the scenario. Okay, whatever fear it is, first of all, you have to understand that in and out. Then we teach the person relaxation training, because we have to understand whenever I am in a fearful situation, whenever I feel that this situation is something uncomfortable to me. Let's say Tejaswini and Anchal, both of them are walking on the road. Okay, so, and while they are walking, they see a dog right in front of them. So Tejaswini keeps on walking. She says, okay, come, let's go. And she keeps on continues to talk. But Anchal, now she has spotted the dog. She becomes very anxious. Let's take a U-turn. Let's not go straight. He might come and he can bite us. So Anchal becomes very anxious, whereas Tejaswini is very calm, composed. She says, why are you doing? She starts laughing. It's just a dog. We'll just go like this. So maybe that's a very casual reaction. The stimulus was same. There was a dog, right? But how Anchal perceived it was the dog would come, would bite, would bark, and they would not be okay, right? They would something bad would happen. Whereas how Tejaswini viewed that situation, that it's just a dog. I'll just cross. They're not men. They're very loving animals. They would not do anything until unless we poke them, right? Or I do something bad to them, they would not retaliate. But because I was anxious, the time I saw that dog, my brain perceived that it's dangerous. And I was put into the situation of fight and flight. I was very panicky. I was start to tremor. There were sweats all around, and I just wanted to take a U-turn and not go straight. So this as an emotion comes into picture. My anxiety comes into picture. Whenever I start to feel fearful, there would be heart palpitations. It might be different for different people, but heart palpitations, sweating, uneasiness, not able to concentrate, overthinking patterns, nausea at times, dizziness, muscle tension. So all these things a person can experience because they have been in a fearful situation. But what do I have to tell this person? I have to help them to relax because they have been so hyperventilating. They have been too anxious. The only way that I can help them to be able to deal with this fear is first when they relax. A person would not be able to listen to me if all his mind is that my heart is pouncing, I might have a heart attack, or there's such a danger out, how will I survive? So first I need to teach this person relaxation training. Whenever we're trying to help somebody come out of their fears, relaxation is a must for them. Because whenever they are anxious, whenever they are fearful, at least something that they have to relax their body. Now, when I've done relaxation training with them, we do a hierarchy construction. Now, what is hierarchy construction? It looks like something of this sort. So hierarchy means a step-by-step approach, okay, from the least to the most anxiety-provoking. So we also call this fear ladder. What do is we sit with our clients and we tell them, okay, let's just think about 10 situations which might be very stressful for you, from 1 being the least fearful to the 10 being the most fearful. Okay, and they have to start rating their fears, with 1 being the on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least fearful and 10 being the most fearful. So I ask him that, okay, I know that you're afraid of dogs. Are you even afraid of looking at the picture of dogs? So the person says, yes, I'm even afraid. I can't even look at the picture of dogs. So I ask them, what would you rate? Is it the least anxiety or is it the most anxiety? So he says maybe it's on a scale of 1 to 10, 1, where it would be a least anxiety. So I put it on number 1. Then I tell them another scenario. Okay, tell me, are you even afraid of looking at a video of dogs? They, yes, of course. I just feel disgusted when I'm just seeing that video. I can't even see the video of dogs. I just panic, or I just want to shut it off, or I become very agitated the moment somebody plays even the video of dogs. So I give it a number 2. Because they said that, okay, looking at picture of dogs is even okay, but watching a video is way too much fearful for me. Then like this, we come from 1 to 10. And I'm putting all the different scenarios which we feel might be going from easy to the most difficult. Okay, like looking at a dog from a window, petting a dog, and all these things. So once we have formed this, now in systemic desensitization, it says that we have to systematically desensitize the fear, remove the fear from the person and replace relaxation. Why Tejaswini was able to relax when she saw a dog on the road? Because she did not have any a past memory associated with it, and she was able to control her thoughts that the dog would bite her, right? She did not have those thoughts, but Anchal was not able to control her thoughts. Always what she viewed a dog was either she was always avoiding, she was withdrawing. So what I need to do is I need to teach Anchal that the moment you see the dog, it does not mean that they will always bite. It's okay. So we have to help her come out of those things. So we replace it with small exposures and teaching them relaxation. Like up till now, whenever Anchal used to look at a picture of dog, she always used to feel anxious. She used to feel uneasy. But now what did I do is I showed her, the therapist shows the client the picture of dogs, and then the client might become anxious, right? They might start to feel nauseatic. So what do is you keep the picture down and you teach them, or you practice relaxation with them. So tell them, see how you were anxious, and now once we've practiced relaxation, you might feel better. Okay, now I will show you the picture again and try to practice relaxation while you are seeing this picture. So what am I doing is, all the physical reactions that came to the body by looking at the picture of dogs have now been kind of calmed down by relaxation. Okay, so I tell them, see the dog, now you're not feeling that disgusted. Once you're relaxed, you're feeling okay about it. This is how you can control your anxiety. This is how you can control your palpitations. Just start to do belly breathing. So all these things that I teach them. So I tell them, okay, now you also practice it while you're at home. And keep on practicing it until you have zero anxiety when you watch this picture. Okay, the anxiety has to go from 1 to 0, that it's okay for me to watch the picture of dogs. You give them different pictures of dogs and tell them to just go home, and then the moment they would feel anxious, they can just try to relax. And then, so what will happen, it will just substitute. Relaxation will substitute the anxiety. And we keep on doing it from step 1 to step 2, exposing the client all the situations. Like next time when he comes and I show them the video of dogs in it. So they again become anxious, I again practice relaxation. So it's a time-consuming process. We do not move to the next step until we feel that the previous step has zero anxiety. Even if they stays that anxiety kam hai, but thodi si hai, we do not move to the next step. We keep on practicing it in different forms. Maybe one video of dogs you showed where there were big dogs. So you put it with puppies or different dogs, right? Maybe you see how dogs are petting the humans and everything. So we change the videos, but we keep on doing it. So we follow all the steps of exposure until unless we reach the last step. And so it also happens at times that once we practice usually first to 3 or 4 steps, the client skips certain steps because then they're able to overcome a lot of fears and they themselves try. So you only have to come up with the most difficult things. But again, it depends upon person to person. So this is what we call as a systemic desensitization. So the client is taught to deep breathe, either deep breathe or any form of relaxation, whatever client feels suitable with. Then we always go from the least anxiety to the most anxiety. And either the client can imagine that situation, or it can happen that I'm exposing my client in that setting. Okay, it can also happen that I get a puppy and I tell my dog to, I tell my client to just pet the dog. Okay, so either it can be done on an imagination level or we do it with this. Nowadays, we also have a lot of technology. I hope you might have heard about virtual reality. Now, we have those cameras, we wear those glasses and the picture goes on and kind of just gives us a lot of feeling. So we are using a lot of virtual reality made recorded tapes related to height, related to fear of specific animals, to be able to help a person feel better. Okay, so it's actually that tape running on and they kind of feel they are climbing the stairs, because it kind of just creates that virtual reality. Most of it we're using to treat anxiety disorders, phobias, and obsessive compulsive disorders in individual people who have a lot of obsessions about cleanliness, about symmetry. For them also we use these things. We construct the same hierarchy. Let's say a person who has a lot of OCD about cleanliness. So he says that I can't even touch anybody else's pen because I feel that it would be contaminated. So we kind of come up with all the fear evoking situations for them and then we expose them to them, but in a very graded manner. Then assertiveness training is also one of the very important techniques of behavioral counseling, where I'm teaching my client to be able to say no without feeling guilty or anxious. Because this is something that we struggle a lot. I said no to my best friend to go to his party because I have an exam next day. Now makes me feel guilty. That what would he think? Or it kind of makes me feel anxious. Maybe he will also not come to my party the next time I plan. Or he might not want to be friends with me. So saying no leaves a lot of doubts in us, leaves us in a lot of guilt state or anxiety state. So we have to try to come out of that. Making requests help from people is at times we are not comfortable doing that. What if I will ask for help from them? They would mean, it would mean that I do not know anything, or I'm not capable enough to do this task on my own, so I can't ask for help. Then acknowledging my own mistakes is also a part of assertiveness training. Rather than seeing my mistakes as failures, I try to see them as a point where I can learn and I can grow. How to be able to express feelings of anger or disappointment. How to express your opinion, how to speak up in groups. So all of these things we learn through assertiveness training. And what do we do in assertiveness training is, there are three important aspects. Always, when I'm trying to communicate assertively, I have to start my statements with I. I have to put a behavior that kind of affects me. I have to put my feelings in that. And I also have to put what consequence it might be. Let's say a boss always shouts or is always agitated with a particular employee who comes to work at a particular time because he is late. So every day the manager is agitated at this particular employee. But this employee also kind of sees that the manager always has bad feelings towards me. He does not respect me. He's biased towards other employees in the company. Right. So this is a very non-assertive way of the manager to express or to communicate with his employees. So rather than, if the manager can say this to his employee, that I feel frustrated. So I'm starting with I'm putting my feelings and I'm putting a behavior with what? When you are late for meetings. And because I do not like to repeat the information, because whenever you are late, I feel frustrated. And why I feel frustrated? Because I don't like to repeat the information. Okay, so this is a very assertive way of expressing. So now the employee would want to understand, or they would understand that this action of mine is somewhere affecting my manager. So I need to change it, rather than me labeling that my manager does not like me at all. Or to tell my partner that I am never given attention, or you never listen. So whenever I start my statements with that you never listen to me, or nobody ever understands me, it always puts the other person into that defensive mode that I would want to save myself. So rather we can start our statements with that I understand that you have a need to talk, but I need to finish what I'm doing. So how about meeting in half an hour? So what am I doing? I'm also respecting my time. I'm respecting my space. And at the same time, I am also negotiating with the person, that I'm not disregarding that I will not speak to you, or I would not want to spend time with you, but let's meet in half an hour to discuss everything. So now the other person also knows. He will respect your boundaries, that I cannot trouble Priyanka because she's working. So I need to respect that till 6 p.m. she has to work. And after that, she will give me in half an hour and we can discuss. Somewhere, the other person also kind of respects your space and boundaries, and at the same time, feel important. Then rather than telling somebody that, no, I do not agree with your decision, we can say that, could you explain the reasoning behind your decision? I'm trying to understand what you are doing. So what do? Is I just give a lot of acceptance to the other person in the situation, that I am not disregarding with everything that you are saying. Okay, I'm not disagreeing with everything that you are saying, but at least if you will try to explain me, maybe I'll try to understand it better. And still, if you feel that things are not something that you would want, so now put your point. Okay, this is what I liked about what you said, but how about if we can work it in this particular manner? Then teaching social skills is also part of behavioral counseling, helping people understand about how to maintain peer relationships, right? How to manage themselves in terms of controlling their anger, how to manage their academics in terms of work, career for that matter, how to be compliant with others. And now, is it that Anchal is always too firm that she doesn't want to work in a team and she always has difficulty following directions? This is not a very healthy behavior, right? Because I'm not involving, we are all social beings. I need to be a part of a social group. So how to be able to follow rules, how to be able to follow directions. Certain people say that I cannot take authority. I cannot see anybody giving me a lot of instructions. Why? We have to tell them that I can understand, but maybe we all have to work together. A collective approach has to be there. Then assertion, initiating conversations and acknowledging compliments. Okay, this also becomes very difficult for us. Now somebody says, wow, you're looking so pretty today. What do we say? अरे हाँ आज तो लाइट अलग है इसलिए सुंदर लग लूंगी, या ये ड्रेस का कलर बहुत अच्छा है इसलिए आई एम लुकिंग ब्यूटीफुल. सो at times we do not know how to take the compliments just by simply saying, oh, thank you so much, है ना? Or I have tried, I spend much time today to decide what I would want to wear, or this color I always like. So it's so difficult for us to accept the compliments. Either we give a compliment back, हाँ आप भी बहुत सुंदर लग रहे हो, है ना? So either we give the compliment back, or we kind of give some other reason, right? Rather than acknowledging. So whenever somebody gives you a compliment, just say thank you. Thank you for acknowledging. Thank you for noting it down. And the more you give compliments to others, it makes you much positive about yourself. You know, we are not very comfortable even giving compliments to somebody else, just not even taking it, right? Because I feel कि अगर उसको compliment दे दिया, so he would feel too egoistic, है ना? या he would feel कि हाँ बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहा है. You go to somebody's place and you notice something, give them a compliment about it. And then the more you give compliment, the more you're acknowledging or appreciating others around you. Believe me, the more accepting you become about yourself. Otherwise, we end up comparing ourselves. Otherwise, we just end up feeling jealous about what the other person is doing and what we are not. And even the other person kind of finds you very accommodative. Even the other person starts to respect you because you are respecting them. You are respecting the efforts that they're putting in. Then social skills training also involves eye contact building, smiling when we are meeting people, shaking hands, of course, not doing it in the COVID scenario, using the right tone and volume of voice when I'm communicating, expressing my opinions to others, perceiving how others are feeling and showing empathy towards them is also very important. Am I able to understand the other person's point of view is also very important. Consequences of poor social skills are challenging peer relationships. Parent and child relationships are affected. My academic performance is not that good. Symptoms of depression and anxiety, increased rates of bullying. Why? Because I'm not sensitive to the other person. I'm not that empathetic with other person. Peer rejections, because I'm not initiating conversation. So I kind of feel rejected by the peers. Now, aversion therapy. Okay, so this sort of a therapy we use specifically in helping to improve upon the habituated behaviors or certain impulsive behaviors, like especially in terms of when there's a lot of habituation towards smoking or a particular form of a substance or of eating disorders in general. So what does aversion therapy say is it's based upon the principle of classical conditioning. I smoke because that kind of gives me a calming effect. So I continue to smoke. Whenever I'm stressed, I would go and I would smoke. So what do we do is through aversion therapy, we create an aversion. We create an undesirable emotion with a habit that I'm indulging in. You know, as small as when we were young, so we used to hear, if a child is biting the nails, put chilies, red chili over here, chili powder over here. So the moment they would put their hand in the mouth, they would taste the chili and they would not want to do it. This is based upon aversion therapy. This is exactly what we do in our counseling as well. Let's say this particular person has been eating a lot of unhealthy foods. Okay, and because it kind of give them a lot of pleasurable stimulation, so they continue to eat. But once in that unhealthy food, either we pair it with a mild shock, either we pair it with something that is what they do not like. So it creates an aversion. Like, let's say I'm very fond of mushrooms, but one fine day I eat a mushroom, or I pair my eating mushroom with putting a lot of salt in it, or putting the mushrooms that do not taste that well. So now next time I would not want to eat because the last time that aversion was created. So this is aversion therapy approaches. This is a lot used by psychiatrists also. There are a lot of medications that we give to people who have certain sort of addictive behaviors in order to cut down those addictions in them. We also do it with people who have been very habituated to smoking. So what happens is smoking has nicotine. Smoke has a nicotine, right? Cigarettes. So whenever we're trying to help a person cut down from their smoking habits, what do we tell them is, in our in-person sessions, when they smoke, what do? They smoke and then they wait for a while. And then after a few seconds, they would smoke. So they would smoke very after a time interval, right? Because that kind of gives them a feeling of relaxation. But what do? We give them a nicotine rush. We just tell them to take rapid puffs. So usse kya hota hai? वो बहुत nauseatic feeling आती है. So now what have we done? Abhi tak smoking was helping me to give that relaxation feeling. And we don't tell this to the client कि हम आपको इसलिए पिला रहे हैं ताकि nausea create हो. नहीं. We just tell them, अच्छा आप smoke करते हो, okay, अब rapid smoke करना शुरू हो जाओ. Rather than time दे के आपको जल्दी जल्दी smoke करना है. ठीक है, एक सिगरेट को जल्दी खत्म करना है. तो अब उससे क्या होगा कि वो बहुत वो nausea feeling create हो जाएगी. So the next time that he would want to smoke, he would feel कि बहुत nausea हुआ था last time that I did it. So it would help them to cut down these patterns. Okay, so this is based upon aversion therapy. Another technique is shaping. So this involves reinforcing behaviors that are closer to the target behaviors through successive approximations. So let's say what do we do in shaping is, let's say a person comes to me he's working in a corporate and he says that every Fridays we have team meetings where, and on every alternate Friday, I have to deliver some speech or we have to prepare a topic and we have to talk on that. But that becomes extremely anxious for me. It is very anxiety provoking that I have to give those speeches or I have to address the audience. So then he approaches the therapist. So what do is, we write a target behavior. Mera target behavior kya hai? That I would want to help this person be able to deliver speech in front of 20 members or 30 members, jitna bhi hai, in front of his team. So that's my target behavior. So what do is, I cut down into small steps of behaviors which are more achievable. So I tell him, acha ek kaam karna, that I just want you to stand in front of the entire audience next Friday. I do not want to अपना delivery of speech को 2 हफ्ते delay करवा लो या 3 हफ्ते delay करा लो. But next time जब भी कुछ ऐसा हो, I just want you to stand in front of them and do nothing and just observe everyone. Okay, so that's the first step. We practice that in person also in our therapy setting, and we also tell them to do it in the actual real scenario as well. Okay, so he just has to stand and he has to observe what he feels. So I keep on practicing until and unless he feels better. Then I tell him, acha next bari aapko kya karna hai? You just say hi to people and stand there. Okay, aapko aur kuch nahi karna hai. You just stand there and just greet everybody out there and keep on doing it for some time. Okay, so we keep on practicing in our sessions. Ki aapko kaise hi bolna hai? What should be your body language? How you should be standing? So we do all of this. Then next time, what I want you to do is, I do not want you to memorize the speech. I want you to write the speech or write the paragraph and just read it in front of them, right? So what does he do? So next time he just goes and reads it in front of them. And finally, when he has done that, after a few intervals, I tell them, okay, now you just have to deliver that speech. So what did I do is, I broke my long-term goal, my target behavior into small achievable goals. And I kept on practicing those small goals with my client. And every time he used to pass, I can give him some sort of a reward, maybe in form of a praise, maybe in the form of appreciation, maybe in anything that you kind of feel that is rewarding for your client. Okay, so we give them that. So that gives them a sense of confidence in themselves. They're able to control their anxiety. So in shaping, it is very important that we first pre-decide the behavior, what the target behavior has to be, because हम सिर्फ उतना ही काम करते हैं, सिर्फ उसी में ही हम we're trying to help our client. Then we also pre-decide the reinforcer, कि what would I be using to give them once they have achieved that target. कि एक बार बस हाई करना था, वो हाई कर दिया, so how would I praise them? Would it just be an appreciation or would it be something in rewards? Then I have a proper plan about how and what I would want from my target behavior. And the learner must be aware about this process beforehand. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए that he is not aware. You have to tell them that it would take 4 weeks, it would take 5 weeks for you to be able to deliver that speech to them. Okay. And then reinforcement should be immediate for each successive approximation. जब भी उन्होंने first time try किया है और कुछ आपको लगा है कि कुछ improvement हुई है, तो reinforcement should be presented there in itself. It should not be कि उन्होंने कल इतना अच्छा behavior किया था, हम उसको आज reinforce कर रहे हैं, नहीं. It has to be immediately post the occurrence of the desired behavior. And until and unless they have mastered a particular step, let's say until and unless he says comfortably the hello to the audience, we're not moving to the next step. And then they must at least succeed 6 out of 10 times. मतलब 6 बारी में आपको लगना चाहिए कि हाँ, this person is doing better. He has come closer to his target goals. Then we move to the next step. Then token economies. This we use a lot in psychiatric hospitals, in classrooms, with students as well. So what do we do is we use certain tokens. Now these tokens should be something which do not have a monetary value in itself. Either it are these small coins or dices that we get in the games or something of that sort. Okay, not the real coins itself. So anything that we see as tokens, है ना, maybe stars in general, ये सब चीजें. So what do we do is, let's say that I'm working with a 10-year-old child whose teacher has complaints of him that he does not sit still in the classroom. He's never completing his work and he's always hitting the children in the classroom. Okay, so now the parents come to me. So there are a lot of behaviors that they tell me कि ये नहीं कर रहा है, ऐसे कर रहा है. So okay, then we decide that we'll go ahead with the token economy technique. So I take up any 3 target behaviors. कोई भी 3 behaviors that I would want to change in this particular child. Maybe A is I would want him to be seated. I would want him to keep his hands to himself when he has urges to hit. And I would want him to complete his homework on time without anybody reminding. So these are the 3 targets that I'm working on with this child. So I sit with this child and I tell him that these are the 3 things that you have to do. And for everything, for every good behavior that you perform, you will be getting 1 token. Okay, let's say that during your 2 hours of your online classes, if you are able to sit on your seat and not get up, okay, yeah, let's say the child is so we also said realistic goals. I know that the child is not sitting on the seat, so I tell him only 2 breaks are allowed for you in these 2 hours. अगर आपने सिर्फ ये 2 breaks ही ली and you sit on your seat, you will get 2 tokens. Okay, so he says, okay. And I say that every time if you have this urge that you want to hit your sister or if you want to hit somebody, you have to keep your hands folded at the back. So if you're able to do this, you will get 1 token, right? And if you are able to complete your work on your own without your mom intervening, you will get 2 tokens. So हर एक जो appropriate behavior है that I expect him to do, I just put it on a piece of paper and I tell him कि आप ये करोगे तो इतने tokens मिलेंगे. And then I set up an economy system कि towards the end of the week, अगर आपके पास 20 tokens होंगे, तो आप मेरे को 20 tokens देना वापस, and then you can go out on a lunch with your friend, or you can go out to watch your favorite movie with your parents. So what am I doing is I am putting the late set of expectations that I have of him. क्या चीजों में उसको indulge होना है. I'm giving him tokens for that, and in the end I take that token and I give him something that he's been working for. Yeah, something, maybe he's working for a lunch date with his friend, or maybe he's working for a movie that he always wanted, or he's working for playing in the garden for 4 hours, 5 hours, or going to his academy. Kuch. I'm going to give him that towards the end of the week. Okay, this is very helpful if we are working with children specifically, because it helps us to lay down very desired set of behaviors with them. Okay, so we're putting out a very clear set of expectations, what we expect, and they also know that every action of theirs would have a consequence. If this point they're not sitting still, it would make it would not give them the tokens that they want, and thus they would not be able to trade in for the rewards. Okay, and these tokens always have to be something that are intangible. That are tangibles, okay, like marbles, like stickers, like board pieces, which we do not have a meaning in itself, because otherwise they will enjoy these stickers only. मैं उनको पैसे देने लग जाऊंगी हर एक उसके लिए, तो वो end of the week में उसके पास पैसे आ गए, he will go out and he will himself enjoy with those things. Okay, so tokens have to be something of this sort. Again, some of the steps that we need to follow is we have to break down the task into very small chunks of time. Okay, we have to, all his behaviors need to be cut down. That's what I said. We have to have a very realistic expectations. If a child is not sitting still throughout, तो मैं उसको ये नहीं बोल सकती कि नहीं आपको बैठना ही है 2 घंटे without any breaks. I have to be very realistic कि आपको 2 या 3 breaks allowed है ना, so that he kind of feel कि हाँ ma'am is negotiating with me. At least I can work, and then धीरे धीरे हम उसको कम कर सकते हैं. Then at least choose up 3 behaviors that you would want to work out on. Not 1, but minimum 3 तो होना ही चाहिए. And then always frame these statements in a very positive way. Like rather than saying don't hit your sister, tell him that you have to keep your hands to yourself. So that is something that we are expecting of you. That don't shout. ये नहीं बोलना उसको. Tell them that you have to talk very softly. Okay, and physically hand the token to your child whenever he wants. So this also becomes very important. So we have to train either the mother or the guardian or the parent or whosoever is handing. So every time he indulges in the appropriate or the expected behavior, we have to hand him the token physically at that point itself. If you're not doing it, he will just lose the interest. कि किसी ने notice तो किया नहीं, मैं 2 घंटे बैठा रहा. Nobody notices, nobody is giving me those tokens. So handing the tokens at that point of time is important. Then timeout. Also, it is important for us to use a lot of timeout even as adults. What do we do in this is we just have to remove ourselves from that situation. Let's say that I'm feeling extremely overwhelmed in a particular scenario. My work has been becoming extremely stressful and I've been sitting all day at that. So what this timeout says, we just have to take ourselves from that situation and just cut out for maybe a 10-15 minutes. So I would suggest for all the adults who are working out here, or if you're studying, whatever you're doing, it is very important for you to take these breaks, take this time out most like after every 3 hours in a day. Sometime where you're just cutting out from all the work that you do. Probably a 10-minute break where you just go and sip a cup of coffee, have some water, listen to your favorite music, or just go out there and sit in the sun, or just observe the things around you. But it is very important for us to cut ourselves. And this also becomes a very important thing for us. Why? It just gives us a lot of time to introspect, a time to just cut out from what we've been doing and just pay attention to on ourselves or to something that has been happening in the environment. It's also a behavioral therapy technique, okay, where we're just distracting ourselves from the uncomfortable stimuli to the to something where the situation or the triggering situation did not occur. We also use this time out with children. And while we were all young, so we used to get this punishment that go out and stand in the corridor. But at some point, it started to become very good. Like it rather than being a punishment, we started to enjoy it. Why? Because everybody would go and we would wave hi, or we would observe so many people out there in the corridor. So it stopped being that sort of a punishment. So in timeout, it is very important that we have to cut ourselves from any sort of a distraction or anything which is giving us some sort of an attention related to the work that we do. That's why we say timeout means completely cutting. So when we are giving these children these timeout, we're usually using this as a sort of a punishment for children. When we're giving them this timeout, what we do is we take them out from the situation where the misbehavior occurred and tell them to just face towards the wall. So the wall is something very, very boring, right? There's no stimulus around there. It does not give them any satisfaction or something to think upon. And we just take it for children, we only give it for 5 minutes to them. Because after that, their brain is too sharp that they keep on coming in with new things in order to help them come out of that boring things. With adults, use 15 minutes. Okay, for them to just cut and reflect back to what they would want to do. Okay, so with this, we come towards the advantages of behavior therapy. It just helps us to regain our emotional balance in terms of just connecting with our emotions, in terms of we being able to understand what emotions are deriving what set of behavioral outcomes, improving our relationships by being more aware of about our own actions, working on our anxiety levels, improving our assertiveness skills, managing our stress levels, ability to set boundaries, which is extremely important. I think nowadays when we need to start respecting our own time and we need to respect that space, that healthy distance that we need to keep for ourselves and also with somebody else. Trauma resolution when we are trying to help people come out of their fears and building self-confidence in them. Okay, now disadvantages. Most often what happens is with behavior therapy, we're only working on the actions. We're not working on the emotions. When I'm trying to help a person in terms of going out there on stage and be able to deliver this speech, I am teaching him how to be able to go, how to manage his emotions at that point of time. But maybe I am not working on a lot of other things that affect anxiety in him, right? As I said, my target behavior is very well established. So if I'm trying to help that person, I have to involve some other approach of counseling as well. Maybe I use emotional regulation techniques or some other techniques to be able to manage that emotions. But with behavior therapy, we're only trying to improve the behavior. And like with this children, I said, I'm only trying to work on their seating behaviors rather than trying to understand ki seating kyun nahi ho pati hai or something of that sort. Okay. Behavior therapy only treats the actions. We're on as in the symptoms that you're observing. If you're observing a loss of excessive behavior in a child, smoking, fidgetiness in a person, or any addictive behaviors, so we're only working on those symptoms that we observe. Irritability, impulsiveness really works well with behavior therapy. And then behavior therapy involves a lot of control and manipulation by the therapist. Why do I say that is? Because the therapist has to be in that active role. If I'm working with a client trying to help him overcome his social phobias, I might have to use a lot of role plays, helping him to come with his inability to deliver those lectures. So I am the one who's planning how I would want to structure the session in a way that I give him small rewards or I give him small target behaviors or small short-term behaviors for him to be able to work on them one at a time. So it involves a lot of control by the therapist and also by the client. At times, the client loses out the motivation that it's taking too long, or they become too impatient with the fact that nahi jaldi se karna hai. So at that particular point of times, behavior therapy take some sort of a time for us to be able to work with the client. Okay, this brings us towards the end of the presentation. I would just stop sharing my screen. And if any one of you have any doubts, I will take that up.
Yeah, Anjalji, I have a question here.
Please go ahead.
So when we started our session, we mentioned a term in the very beginning, like where we are setting up some behaviors. I forgot the term. Is it
Maladaptive
possible to repeat?
behaviors.
Maladaptive behaviors. So what happens, I face a lot of scenarios where parents with their kid, they come complaining about the behaviors and these things. Unfortunately, a lot of times we observe that the behavior that is expected may not be the best one for the kid. And the kid is probably realizing from a very different aspect, because the kid is in a very different zone altogether. Because with technology, with the changes in environment, the situations where various behaviors can be good, so-called, I would say, good or bad, are very, very person specific nowadays, based upon their perception. How to set a target of good behavior either in the parents or in the kid? Terming something as a maladaptive behavior and trying to rectify, sometimes I find like it is causing a huge depression in the new
Family.
generation, and
True.
they go out of the parents altogether.
I totally agree. I think it's a very well raised point. What to call as actually, which is what is maladaptive, right? I think it comes when we are specifically dealing with children, for that matter. You have to understand children are just reflecting what they have learned in their immediate surroundings. It could be through their families, it could be through schools, it could be peers, it could be anything, it could be technology, media that they're watching. Now, what do we actually term adaptive or maladaptive? First of all, when we are working with a family in particular, it is very important for us to realize where is the each family member, what is the expectations that each family member has of in this particular scenario. Let's say, for example, if I'm doing career counseling, so the parents say that this child has always been too good in mathematics and science, so we feel that he should opt for medical or engineering because he has been very good, and now he's not realizing his potential and he wants to pursue music or he wants to pursue arts. Now this is the conflict. Now where do we pitch in, right? I can see the capabilities, maybe he has that aptitude, but does he has interest in that? Of course, his ability to acquire mathematical skills are up to the mark, but there is no interest. So no matter how much efforts he would put, he would not be happy, or it would not be in compliance with what he wants. So in these scenario, it becomes very specific to what are parents' expectations, what are parents expecting, and what are children being able to deliver. Right? We have to see a lot in terms of, are there certain mental filters that are being used? Is there mental fixedness that we need to work on? So as I said, adaptive or maladaptive behavior, it always has to be in reference with the culture, with the adaptive patterns, with the day-to-day functioning, and also with the age
Absolutely.
appropriateness. So at this
Absolutely.
point, we coming from a very general or a neutral point of view. So we have to evaluate. If the parent is saying, let's say during the lockdown, we experienced a lot of these things, right? Parents were, none of us had routines, right? We all had no predictability. We were home all day. So either we were waking up just before the class, right? So all of us were triggered by this. Now parents were upset that children do not have the routine. Whereas we notice that parents themselves did not have the routine, right? No routine to eat. So now, how can you expect this from a child for them to sleep at 11 when everybody at home is up, somebody is watching television, somebody is on phone? So that is not something, a very legible set of expectations that we have. Either all of us have to be on the same page. 11 means we have to sleep. So those rules have to be for everybody. Because children these days have become very smart this way. Mama, he is not doing, Papa is not doing this, why are you telling me? So in this aspect, that maladaptive or something of this sort has to be in reference with the family. That's how we tell them.
Yeah.
And
So,
when we as neutral people approach, I think it becomes better for them to listen to us or be open about it.
So just one more thing to understand. In this case, the reward or the kind of cautions, if both can be given with some explanation sometimes, that why, that can work a wonder for the kid to understand. Otherwise they would be facing the scenario as you mentioned, that okay fine, I'm going to get this, or if I want to have this as scenario, so I'll be doing such kind of tantrums or whatever. So why, that explanation, that communication is pretty important, I find, to set up some behaviors if we
True.
want some, right?
True. Very true. Absolutely.
Sure.
Giving
Thank you.
them a scientific reason, something that they agree upon is very important.
So, taking the questions of Anindya, that if there is some malbehavior in a kid, for example, using mobile or watching videos on mobile continuously, and parents are complaining about these things, but simultaneously when they are doing some work, for example, they are also using the mobile continuously, and because of that behavior is kid is following. So who is our actual client then? Is the kid or is the parent?
That's why I said everybody has to be on the same page in this aspect. See, if parents are working on laptop throughout the day, because dad is an engineer, so he has to work at the laptop, or he's managing clients. So the child cannot say, nahi, papa bhi kaam kar rahe hain, mama bhi kaam kar rahi hai, so I have to be also laptop. So उस time उसको clear uska roles and responsibilities, everybody has to tell. Father is doing this because he has this sort of a thing. You are expected to write, okay, rather than type all day. Then setting clear expectations that you can use the mobile for 1 hour, okay, during the day. Like you attend your online classes, already you're attending online classes from 9 to 12, let's say. There's a lot of screen exposure. So probably you'll take a break, and after that you take some time, give them some routining or whatever it is. And then 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, again, you can use a mobile or you can watch your favorite cartoon for half an hour or 40 minutes, and then you can go out and play. So what are we doing? We're setting them clear set of expectations and how much time you're allowed to use the mobile. And if you are not using, and if you are using it excessively than that amount, then there are negative reinforcements. Let's say that if you feel that they have watched TV today for 1 hour, to subsequent, it had to be half an hour. So you tell them, okay, from tomorrow, you would not be given the mobile at this hour because you watched it today. Okay, so now they know. Okay, rather than saying कि कल से TV आएगा ही नहीं या no, tell them beforehand. Okay, because you perform this particular behavior, now we're indulging in this for you tomorrow. Next day, you can watch it for half an hour. Yeah, take out some cut their play time if you feel they're going out with friends. So tell them 1 घंटा अब ये हो चुका है. So now you cannot go out and play. Probably you can do something at home. So ऐसा करके set appropriate expectations and rules for them that has to be followed. And then you have to be the one who's observing. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि एक दिन हमने observe कर लिया कि वो 1 घंटा मोबाइल में है ना, तो हमने उसको मना कर दिया. Every day it has to be the same thing कि no, we are not following. है ना? And even everybody then has to make sure कि अब जब बच्चा free है तो I should not be on mobile. That he is free, so now I am sitting. So what will he do? So either I indulge him into something, I give him, or I spend some quality time with him. So that where I am also showing that mobile is not that much of important. है ना? Yeah, we have to cut out screen time. Okay. Anybody else has any doubt? Anything you want to share? Any feedback you would want to give? Anybody?
Your explanations are so crisp that we have no doubts whatsoever. So it's been a very educative and nice presentation, Anchal.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
So
acknowledging.
I just needed one help, like how do we apply these techniques in a group? Like I said, I work in an NGO where I deal with kids of 4th standard, and each one of them is the kid of a laborer. So they don't have great examples at home, and they spend around 2 hours with us in the evening after they come from school. So to follow, they don't have great example all through the day, and they go to these government schools where hundreds of kids are sitting together. So there also they're not getting any guidance as to how they should be. And when they come to our school also, they are in such a big group that it becomes very difficult to handle them. So how do we enforce positive behavior in a group of kids who don't have proper ideals at home?
And probably that much of support where, yes, Anandya, do you want to add something to it?
I would like to cite one example regarding what Tejaswini just asked for. I actually work in the same kind of environment as she mentioned. And what I did, I used to go to the center, and I've seen people. I went to their home also, and then what I did that I found their homes are not so much clean. But I am not there to change their home and environment within a fortnight or something. What I did, I made the center very clean, very decorative, very lively, everything. And I wanted them to be spending very happy moments there. So gradually they have adopted that environment, and they have started to go back to their home, and then started with a small corner, like their own corner of the room, to make the similar kind of thing, like a west bin at the corner, like something very neatly designed, something. Gradually they cleaned up the entire room. Gradually they cleaned up the entire I'd say the slum. And one day I was astonished when they all came to me and telling that, sir, in front of our center, we have a big, municipal dump yard. So that is actually having difficult for us to come to this center. Why don't we go for a kind of, notifying the municipality? So I said, why? Well, let us do this one. Why not? So they have then written a mail to the municipality altogether, telling that this particular dump yard should be cleaned twice in a day because we have our school here. And the municipality was forced to change that one. So bringing changes in the behaviors by doing a small part can work sometimes wonder. I'm just sharing my own experience with here. Just sharing.
Very nice. I think it's actually something that we do, है ना? Just practice before you preach, that kind of a thing. Superb. But also coming to what you asked, I feel that it's very important for you, as you said, to inculcate a lot of positive acceptance in these children. So make sure you're making certain modules with them. Okay, like I said, use a lot of praises for them, use a lot of positive statements for them to ask any sort of a behavior, rather than telling them that give them small compliments to the child. Let's say you've seen somebody who's dressed very well today, okay, or he has followed, dressed well in the sense belt tucked in, shirt tucked in, and belt there. So give them praises that, wow, I really appreciate this in you. So the other people also kind of listen. Maybe not to make it as a point कि मैं सिर्फ इसी बच्चे को appreciate कर रही हूँ. Maybe also in he has come there and you're appreciating. So use a lot of positive appreciation and praises, compliments for these children. Also, what you can do is you can make certain modules. I would suggest to work on small things. Probably you're working on confidence building. So only work upon in building their confidence. How they can, what is the body language? Take a lot of workshops with them. But how should I be sitting, how I should say thank you, what eye contact, skill training, or assertiveness, how do you have to express rather than hitting anybody. if you want to say any what impact it can be when you're saying using any foul language with others. तो आप ऐसे ऐसे modules बना लो that only on which you are working, और उसी को continue रखो. Let's say that whatever you feel is the need in that particular situation, है ना, you kind of feel कि मुझको इनको बहुत ज्यादा पहले positive acceptance सिखाना है, या मुझे इनको hygiene के बारे में सिखाना है. So सिर्फ आप वही module रखो, run that module for a while, use a lot of activities, maybe giving them homeworks, ऐसा छोटा छोटा, है ना, कि probably to draw something, how they can coming up with the ideas. I think what Anindya ji said, coming up with the ideas कि आपको कैसा लगता है हम अपनी क्लास को और कैसे डेकोरेट कर सकते हैं, या हम कैसे, how would you want to help a friend, कभी भी जब भी आपको करना होगा उसको स्केच करके लाओ. So something of this sort. Give them these scenarios where they're using a lot of creativity, where you're also coming up to know कि उनके actually उनके दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है. The more you would relate to them, the more you would relate to their belief patterns, I think आपके लिए बहुत easy हो जाएगा to understand them and then work with them, है ना. So give them a lot of ideas to express themselves, है ना, and use a lot of positive acceptance. ये बच्चे majorly यही miss करते हैं because they're coming from particular groups. They have already, they are carrying those labels, है ना, that so उनके लिए उनका confidence level वैसे ही down हो जाता है. They kind of become कि हम तो ऐसे ही हैं, मैम हमारे तो friends नहीं हैं, या something of this sort. So you have to first understand their belief patterns. You have to relate to them so that we can try, so that we can be a positive influence. Otherwise उनको लगेगा मैम भी हमको नहीं समझती है. तो मैम पहले समझे for them to be able to make some difference. ना use only their language. हिंदी में जो सी भी language में वो comfortable है उसी में use करो, उनसे बात करो. Use a lot of humor with them. अपने पे भी कभी jokes बना लो, मतलब ऐसे नहीं, not something going below the belt or something, but using a lot of humors जहाँ पर हम भी we're just relating to them, and then use these modules to work with them.
Okay. And I also had one more doubt, like I wanted to inspire them to put their time into reading and learning. So I was thinking, like one day I told them in the class that, see, your parents are not in such a great position, so at least you try to rise above that and all that. But after I came home and thought about it, am I the respect for the labor, am I reducing it? So I don't know whether this is the right approach to inspire them to education.
Maybe rather than telling them that you should be doing better than what your parents are doing, that's what I said. Do an activity in your classroom only and tell them to sketch what they would want to be one day, or what they would want to be 2 years from now. Just see how they react, and then have a discussion on that. कि आपने ये क्यों बनाया है? How much is this important to you? आपको क्या लगता है कि आप ये कर पाओगे भी या नहीं कर पाओगे, है ना. हो सकता है फैंटेसी थिंकिंग इतना है, उनको रियलिस्टिकली नहीं लगता कि वो कर सकते हैं. तो ask about that, है ना. And rather than it's a very good way that we would want them to read, है ना. That's how communication patterns, उनका openness to experience would improve. But first make sure first to understand कि हर एक बच्चे का इंटरेस्ट कहाँ पे है ना. तो आप उससे रिलेटेड उनको कोई एक्टिविटी दे सकते हो rather than just reading. Children who do not have a very fluent language development, है ना, तो reading तो वो कर ही नहीं पाएंगे. So probably something else. They might like listening to stories. So the one who has read, maybe he can narrate the story in the classroom so that everybody hears. या ऐसा ग्रुप में एक्टिविटी आपने करवा दी कि जो रीड करके आए, the other would share some story, या हर बारी कोई एक बच्चा एक स्टोरी सुनाएगा. So they would know कि हाँ फ्राइडे को मेरी टर्न आएगी स्टोरी सुनाने में, तो मैं कोई भी एक स्टोरी पढ़कर आता हूँ ऐसे करके. So give them these tasks. Okay, but you're doing a great work. I'm glad that you're associated with the grassroots. I think that's very important for us to be able to bring out that change.
No, but the environment is so different for us and for them. It sometimes becomes very difficult to understand what they are going and to empathize with them. So hopefully this will help to tackle. I'll just see how it goes.
No, your efforts will truly have a fruitful result. Super.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Would you like to share something with us? Okay, so I think this brings us towards the end of our session today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. I really enjoyed this session today. Thanks for being such an participative audience and learners today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
enjoyed too.
Thank you so much,
It
ma'am.
was a fantastic one. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.